Chapter 1. King Damon Blackthorn stood at the window of his war room, staring out at the moonlit territories that stretched beyond the palace walls. His reflection in the glass showed a man hardened by battle, scarred jaw, cold silver eyes, and shoulders that carried the weight of the largest werewolf kingdom in the northern hemisphere. The Silverpaw Pack has agreed to the terms, his beta, Marcus, announced from behind him. Alpha Roland will send his daughter as planned. Damon didn't turn around. And the girl. Her name is Aria Silverpaw, 22 years old. Never shifted, according to our sources. There are rumors about her appearance. I don't care what she looks like, Damon said flatly. This marriage ends 100 years of border disputes. That's all that matters. But Marcus hesitated, which was unusual for him. The rumors are unkind, Your Majesty. They say she's been kept hidden since she was a child. That she wears veils and masks. That her own pack calls her the Silverpaw Curse. Damon finally turned, his expression unreadable. Then she and I will make a perfect pair. A cursed bride for a king with no heart. It had been 3 years since Damon's mate bond had been severed in the most brutal way possible. His true mate, Elena, had been killed by rogues during a peace negotiation he'd arranged. The bond breaking had nearly destroyed him. They said he'd screamed for 3 days straight, that the pain had turned his black hair silver at the temples, that something essential had died inside him along with her. Since then, Damon had become the Ice King, a ruler who commanded through fear and strategy rather than inspiration. He'd expanded his territory through calculated warfare, crushed 3 rebellions, and maintained order through an iron fist. He didn't need love. He needed heirs and alliances. The wedding is set for the next full moon, Marcus continued. 3 weeks from tonight. Alpha Roland insists on traditional ceremonies, no unveiling until the vows are complete. Fine. Damon returned to the maps spread across his table, already dismissing the conversation. Make the arrangements. I'll play my part. Chapter 2. 300 miles south, in the crumbling manor of the Silverpaw territory, Aria stood before her father's desk with her head bowed. The silver veil covering her face felt heavier than usual, as if the weight of her entire future pressed down on that delicate fabric. You understand what's expected of you, Alpha Roland said, not looking up from the treaty documents. He'd never looked at her much anyway. You will marry the Alpha King. You will give him heirs. You will not embarrass this pack. Yes, father. Her voice was soft, almost musical, but Roland didn't seem to notice. Keep yourself covered until after the vows, as is tradition. Once the marriage is consummated and you're bound to him, it won't matter what you look like. He'll be stuck with you. Aria's hands trembled slightly in her lap, but she kept her voice steady. What if he rejects me? Even an Alpha King can refuse a mate bond. There is no mate bond between you, Roland said coldly. His mate is dead. This is a political arrangement. He has no choice, and neither do you. Perhaps you should be grateful no wolf would ever choose you willingly. The words were meant to wound, and they did, but Aria had learned long ago not to let her father see her pain. She'd been locked away for so long that hurt had become a familiar companion, almost comfortable in its consistency. Will mother come to the wedding? She asked quietly. Your mother is dead. You know this. I meant stepmother Lydia. No one from our pack will attend except myself and 2 witnesses, Roland interrupted. This wedding is a formality, nothing more. The less attention drawn to you, the better for everyone. After she was dismissed, Aria returned to her tower room, the place where she'd spent most of her 22 years. Her only companion was an elderly Omega named Esther, who'd been assigned to care for her since childhood. How did it go, dear? Esther asked, her weathered face creasing with concern. As expected. Aria removed her veil carefully, revealing features that would have stopped any wolf in their tracks. Her face was heart-shaped and delicate, with high cheekbones that caught the lamplight like carved ivory. Her eyes were an unusual violet blue, ringed with dark lashes that seemed too long to be real. Her lips were full and naturally rose-colored, her nose perfectly straight, and her skin had the kind of luminous quality that seemed to glow from within. She was, by any objective measure, breathtaking. I don't understand why he keeps you hidden, Esther muttered, helping Aria out of her heavy robes. You're the most beautiful creature I've ever seen. You know why, Aria said softly, moving to her window. Because beauty without a wolf is worthless. Because I'm defective. Because every time someone looks at me, they're reminded that Alpha Roland's bloodline produced a failure. The truth was more complicated, but Aria had stopped trying to understand her father's hatred years ago. She'd been born during a lunar eclipse, an unlucky omen. Her mother had died in childbirth. And despite her alpha lineage, Aria had never shifted, never felt her wolf surface, never experienced the connection to pack and moon that defined their kind. In werewolf society, she was less than nothing. A beautiful shell with no substance. An embarrassment to her bloodline. The Alpha King is supposed to be terrifying, Esther said, trying to change the subject. They say he killed 50 rogues single-handedly during the border wars. They say he doesn't smile, doesn't laugh, doesn't feel anything at all. Then we should get along perfectly, Aria said with a sad smile. A king with no heart and a bride with no wolf. Perhaps we're exactly what each other deserves. Chapter 3. The full moon rose over the Blackthorn Palace like a silver coin, illuminating the great hall where the wedding would take place. Damon stood at the altar in his ceremonial armor, black leather and silver chains that marked him as the Alpha King. His closest allies and council members filled the hall, along with representatives from the 5 major packs. Everyone was curious about the mysterious bride. The rumors had spread like wildfire. The Silverpaw Pack was sending their defective daughter, a girl so ugly she'd been kept in hiding for decades, a wolfless embarrassment that Alpha Roland was desperate to offload onto anyone who would take her. Damon had heard all of it and felt nothing. His heart had died with Elena. This girl, whoever she was, would be his wife in name only. He'd do his duty, produce heirs if possible, and otherwise leave her to her own devices in the vast palace. The ceremony began with traditional wolf songs, the haunting melodies echoing off the stone walls. Then the doors opened, and Alpha Roland entered with his daughter. She wore the traditional bridal robes of the old ways, layer upon layer of silver silk that completely obscured her form. Her face was covered by an ornate veil embedded with moonstone, as custom dictated. No one would see the bride's face until the vows were complete. Damon watched her approach with detached interest. She moved gracefully despite the heavy robes, her head held high. She wasn't cowering or stumbling. Whatever else she might be, she had dignity. When she reached the altar, Alpha Roland placed her hand in Damon's without ceremony or warmth. "She's your problem now," he muttered, low enough that only Damon's enhanced hearing could catch it. Damon's eyes narrowed slightly, the first sign of emotion he'd shown all evening. But he said nothing, turning his attention to the priestess who would conduct the ceremony. The vows were ancient, spoken in the old tongue of their kind. Damon recited his part mechanically, his deep voice carrying through the hall without inflection. When it was the bride's turn, her voice surprised him. It was clear and melodious, steady despite what must be her nervousness, with an undertone of strength he hadn't expected. And now, the priestess announced, "By the power of the moon and the ancient bonds of our people, I pronounce you husband and wife. Let the bride be revealed to her mate." This was the moment everyone had been waiting for. The hall fell silent as Damon reached for the veil, following tradition. He expected nothing, some plain girl, perhaps scarred or disfigured, certainly nothing that would affect him one way or another. He lifted the veil. The collective gasp from the assembled crowd was so loud it echoed off the ceiling. Damon froze, his hand still holding the veil, his silver eyes locked on the face before him. For the first time in 3 years, he felt something crack in the ice surrounding his heart. She was stunning. Not just beautiful, transcendent. Her violet blue eyes met his with a mixture of fear and defiance, her perfect features illuminated by candlelight. Her hair, revealed as the veil came away, cascaded down her back in waves of silver white that seemed to capture moonlight itself. For a moment, Damon couldn't speak. Couldn't think. The entire hall had fallen into shocked silence, everyone staring at the bride they'd been told was an ugly duckling, a cursed embarrassment, a creature to be pitied. Instead, they were looking at a goddess. Damon started, then caught himself. His expression shuddered again, the ice reforming, but not before Aria saw the flash of genuine shock in his eyes. Disappointing, she finished softly, her voice carrying just to him. I know. Beauty without a wolf is just an empty shell, Your Majesty. I understand what I am. Something in her tone, resignation, mixed with quiet strength, stirred something in Damon he'd thought long dead. But before he could respond, Alpha Roland was there, his face purple with barely contained rage. The ceremony is complete, he said tersely. I'll be leaving now. He didn't say goodbye to his daughter. Didn't offer any blessing or well wishes. He simply turned and stalked from the hall, leaving Aria standing at the altar beside her new husband, facing a crowd of strangers who couldn't stop staring at her. Damon saw the slight tremor in her hands, the way she held herself rigid as if preparing for a blow. And he made a decision. He removed his ceremonial cloak, the heavy black fur that marked him as king, and draped it around her shoulders. The gesture was traditional, a symbol of protection and acceptance, but it also served a practical purpose. It hid her from the gawking crowd. Come, he said quietly, offering her his arm. I'll show you to your chambers. You must be tired from your journey. Aria looked up at him with surprise, as if kindness was the last thing she'd expected. Then she placed her hand on his arm, and together they walked from the hall, leaving whispers and shocked speculation in their wake. Chapter 4. Damon led Aria through the palace corridors in silence, very aware of her small hand resting on his arm. She moved with natural grace despite the heavy robes and his cloak, her head still held high even though he could sense her nervousness. These will be your chambers, he said, stopping at an ornate door carved with moon phases. They connect to mine through that door, but I'll keep it locked unless you request otherwise. You'll have complete privacy. Aria looked at the door, then back at him, confusion clear in those extraordinary violet eyes. You're not going to. I thought tonight we would. Consummate the marriage? Damon finished bluntly. No, not tonight. But the treaty. The treaty requires marriage, not immediate wedding. He studied her carefully. You're afraid of me. It wasn't a question. Aria considered lying, then decided against it. I'm afraid of disappointing you. There's a difference. How could you possibly disappoint me? You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. The words came out harsher than he'd intended, almost accusatory. Aria flinched slightly. Because beauty is all I have, Your Majesty. I'm wolfless. Powerless. I can't shift, can't feel the pack bonds, can't give you the strong airs you need. My father sent me here because no one else would take me, treaty or not. He dressed me up in veils and secrecy not to protect me, but to hide his shame until it was too late for you to refuse. Her honesty surprised him. Most wolves would have tried to deceive him, to maintain the illusion as long as possible. But she laid her deficiencies out plainly, as if daring him to reject her now. I haven't decided what to do with you yet, Damon said finally. But you're my wife now, which means you're under my protection. No one in this palace will harm you or treat you with disrespect. Is that clear? Yes, Your Majesty. In private, you may call me Damon. He moved toward the door, then paused. And Aria? Whatever your father told you about yourself, forget it. You're not a disappointment. You're a mystery. There's a difference. He left before she could respond, closing the door between them with a soft click. In his own chambers, Damon poured himself a drink and tried to organize his thoughts. The entire evening had unsettled him in ways he hadn't experienced since Elena's death. He'd been so certain he was beyond feeling anything, desire, curiosity, protectiveness, but this strange girl had cracked something open in him. A knock at his door interrupted his brooding. Marcus entered without waiting for permission, as was his privilege as Beta. Well, Marcus said, barely containing his shock. What in the moon's name is going on? That girl is no ugly duckling. She's... I know what she is. Damon cut him off. The question is why? Why would Alpha Roland hide her? Why the elaborate deception? Maybe he wasn't hiding her ugliness, Marcus suggested. Maybe he was hiding her beauty. But why? Because a beautiful wolfless girl would attract the wrong kind of attention, Damon said slowly, working it through. Wolves who would try to use her, breed with her hoping to claim her alpha bloodline, hurt her to get to her father. Or maybe there's something else. Something we're not seeing. Damon set down his glass. I want everything you can find on Aria Silverpaw. Her birth, her childhood, her mother's death. Everything. And I want to know why a girl with alpha blood has never shifted. You think she's lying about being wolfless? No. Damon thought of those violet eyes, the resignation in her voice. I think she believes it. But that doesn't mean it's true. Chapter 5. Aria woke to sunlight streaming through windows she hadn't noticed the night before. For a moment, she forgot where she was, then memory crashed back. The wedding, the reveal, the Alpha King's shocking kindness. A soft knock at the door was followed by a pleasant female voice. My lady? I'm Stella, your personal attendant. May I enter? Aria sat up, still wearing the sleeping gown she'd found laid out the night before. Yes, come in. Stella was a young beta wolf with kind brown eyes and an efficient manner. She carried a tray of breakfast and was followed by 2 other servants bearing clothing and toiletries. His Majesty thought you might prefer to rest this morning, Stella explained, setting the tray on a table by the window. But if you'd like to explore the palace, I'm to give you a tour. You have complete freedom to go anywhere you wish. Anywhere? Aria asked, surprised. She'd expected to be confined to her chambers, or at least restricted to certain areas. His Majesty was very clear. You're the queen now, my lady. The entire palace is yours. Queen. The title felt strange on Aria's shoulders, like an ill-fitting cloak. She ate breakfast while Stella chatted easily about the palace layout, the staff, and the daily routines. It was clear the young woman had been chosen for her friendly demeanor, probably to help Aria feel more comfortable. After bathing and dressing in a simple but elegant gown of deep blue, Aria decided to explore. Stella guided her through corridor after corridor, pointing out the library, the gardens, the training grounds, and various wings of the massive palace. They were crossing through a courtyard when Aria heard it, a child crying. She stopped, turning toward the sound. That's just the orphanage wing, Stella said quickly. Children whose parents died in the wars. His Majesty houses them here, provides for them. Can I see them? Stella looked uncertain. I suppose, but my lady, they're just orphan children. Rough, some of them. Not proper company for a queen. I'd like to see them anyway. The orphanage wing was simpler than the rest of the palace, but clean and well-maintained. A harried-looking Omega woman was trying to comfort a small boy of about 5 who'd apparently skinned his knee. Let me, Aria said softly, kneeling beside the boy. She had no wolf healing powers, but she had gentle hands and a soothing voice. Within minutes, the boy had stopped crying, fascinated by the beautiful lady who'd appeared like something from a fairy tale. Soon, other children gathered around her, curious and surprisingly unafraid. Aria found herself telling them stories, tales her old nurse Esther had told her during her lonely childhood. She didn't notice how much time had passed until a shadow fell across the courtyard. Damon stood in the doorway, watching his new wife surrounded by children who were laughing and hanging on her every word. Something in his chest tightened, not quite pain, but close to it. Your Majesty. The Omega woman, whose name was Clara, practically bowed herself in half. I'm so sorry, we didn't mean to monopolize the Queen's time. It's fine, Damon said, his eyes still on Aria. May I speak with my wife? Alone. The children scattered reluctantly as Aria stood, brushing off her gown. She'd been laughing moments before, but now her expression grew guarded, as if she expected reprimand. I'm sorry if I overstepped, she said quietly. Stella said I could go anywhere, but if the orphanage is off-limits. It's not off-limits. You can go anywhere in this palace. Damon moved closer, studying her. You're good with them. The children. I spent a lot of time alone as a child. I know what it's like to feel unwanted. Her honesty continued to surprise him. Most people carefully managed what they revealed to him, especially this early in their acquaintance. But Aria seemed incapable of deception. Walk with me, he said, offering his arm. "I want to show you something." He led her to the highest tower of the palace, up spiral stairs that opened onto a platform overlooking the entire kingdom. The view was breathtaking, forests and mountains stretching to the horizon, the river cutting through the valley like a silver ribbon. "This is where I come when I need to think," Damon said. "No one else knows about it. Not even Marcus." "Why are you showing me?" Aria asked, genuinely confused. "Because you're my wife. Because despite the circumstances of our marriage, you deserve more than to be locked away in comfortable rooms." He turned to face her fully. "I've made some decisions. I want you to hear them from me." Aria braced herself, that old familiar fear rising. Here it comes, she thought. The rejection, the terms of their arrangement, the ways in which she'll be expected to make herself small and invisible. "First," Damon said, "I'm not going to treat you like your father did. You're not a prisoner here. You're the queen, which means you have power, authority, and freedom. Use them. Second, I won't force you into my bed. When and if we consummate this marriage, it will be your choice as much as mine. I won't have you afraid of me. Third, I want you to explore your wolf." Aria's head snapped up. "I don't have a wolf. You have alpha blood from both parents. The wolf is there, Aria. Something is blocking it, suppressing it. I'm going to find out what." "Why?" The question burst from her. "Why do you care? You didn't want this marriage any more than I did. You could just ignore me, keep me as a figurehead. Why bother?" Damon was quiet for a long moment, watching the wind catch her silver hair. "Because something about you calls to me," he admitted finally. "And I don't understand it. I thought I was dead inside, but you make me feel things I didn't think I could feel anymore. It's uncomfortable and inconvenient and completely unexpected." "But you loved your mate," Aria whispered. "Everyone knows the story. She died and broke your heart. How can you feel anything after that?" "I don't know." Damon's expression was troubled. "But I do know that I meant what I said last night. You're not a disappointment, Aria. You're a mystery. And I intend to solve you." Chapter 6. Over the following weeks, life at the Blackthorn Palace fell into an unexpected rhythm. Damon threw himself into investigating Aria's past, sending Marcus and his best trackers to the Silverpaw territories to dig up information. Meanwhile, Aria began to find her place in the palace, drawn especially to the orphan children and the palace library, where she discovered ancient texts about wolf magic and shifting. She and Damon took meals together, and slowly, painfully, they began to know each other. He told her about Elena, about the bond breaking, about the darkness that had consumed him. She told him about her lonely childhood, her father's cruelty, her mother's death during a lunar eclipse. "An eclipse," Damon repeated thoughtfully over dinner one evening. "That's significant. Eclipse births are rare and powerful in wolf magic." "Or cursed," Aria said softly. "That's what father always said. Your father is a fool." Damon's voice was flat, final. "I've been researching eclipse wolves. They're not cursed, they're special. Different. Their wolves manifest differently than normal wolves." "What do you mean?" Before he could answer, Marcus burst into the dining hall, his expression grim. "Your Majesty, we found something. You need to see this now." In Damon's study, Marcus spread out a collection of documents and testimonies they'd gathered from the Silverpaw Pack. What they revealed made Damon's blood run cold. Aria's mother didn't just die in childbirth, Marcus explained. She was Luna Celestia, one of the most powerful alpha females of her generation. She died during an eclipse because she was performing a binding ritual. A binding ritual? Aria had followed them to the study despite Damon's attempt to shield her. "What does that mean?" Marcus looked uncomfortable, but Damon nodded for him to continue. "She was binding your wolf, my lady. Locking it away with powerful magic. The ritual killed her, but it worked. Your wolf has been magically suppressed since birth." The room spun. Aria sank into a chair, her mind reeling. "Why? Why would my mother do that?" "We don't know for certain," Marcus admitted. "But we found some of her journal entries. She wrote about a prophecy, something about an eclipse child with the power to unite all packs or destroy them. She wrote that she had to protect you, that it was the only way to keep you safe from those who would use you." "Safe from who?" "From everyone. Damon said quietly, reading from one of the journal pages Marcus had recovered. The factions will tear her apart, trying to control her power. The rogues will try to corrupt her. Even her own father might try to use her as a weapon. Better she lives as a normal wolf than dies as a pawn in someone else's war. Aria felt tears streaming down her face. All these years, she thought she was defective, cursed, a disappointment. But her mother had sacrificed everything to protect her. Can it be undone? She asked through her tears. The binding. Damon knelt before her chair, taking her hands in his. Yes, but it won't be easy, and it might be dangerous. If your mother was right about your power, unleashing it could make you a target. I don't care about danger, Aria said fiercely, her violet eyes blazing. I've spent my whole life being half alive, incomplete. I want to feel what it's like to be whole, even if it's only for a moment. Damon saw the determination in her face and made his decision. Then we'll do it. Together. But on one condition. What? When your wolf emerges, if there is any danger, any threat to you, you'll let me protect you. You'll trust me. I already trust you, Aria said softly, and realized it was true. This fierce, broken king who'd shown her more kindness in a few weeks than her own father had in a lifetime, she trusted him completely. Something shifted in Damon's expression, his silver eyes darkening. He reached up, cupping her face gently, giving her every chance to pull away. When she didn't, he leaned in and kissed her. It was soft at first, tentative, as if he'd forgotten how to do this. But then Aria's hands came up to his chest, and something ignited between them. A quiet, almost relieved smile spread across Marcus's face. With a soft exhale, he turned away and left the room without a sound, giving them the privacy they deserved. The kiss deepened, and Aria felt something stir inside her, not her wolf, but something equally powerful. Desire. Connection. The beginning of love. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damon rested his forehead against hers. I didn't think I could feel this again, he admitted roughly. You've awoken something in me I thought was dead forever. Show me, Aria whispered. Show me what you feel. And there, in his study with moonlight streaming through the windows, Damon claimed his wife properly for the first time. It was fierce and tender, passionate and gentle, everything Aria had never dared to hope for. And when they finally lay tangled together in the aftermath, she felt truly seen for the first time in her life. Chapter 7. The ritual to unbind Aria's wolf required a full moon, a pack circle, and ancient magic that only the eldest priestesses still knew. Damon assembled his most trusted wolves, Marcus, Stella, Clara from the orphanage, and the high priestess who'd married them. They gathered in the sacred grove behind the palace, a place where the moonlight fell unfiltered through the ancient trees. Aria stood in the center of a circle inscribed with symbols that glowed faintly silver, wearing a simple white dress that left her arms and feet bare. Are you ready? Damon asked, standing at the edge of the circle. He wanted to be closer, to hold her hand through this, but the ritual required she stand alone. I'm ready. Aria's voice was steady, but he could see the tremor in her hands. The high priestess began to chant in the old language, her voice joined by the others in the circle. The magic built slowly, a pressure in the air that made everyone's wolves stir restlessly. Aria's eyes began to glow that strange violet blue, brighter and brighter as the magic worked on the binding her mother had placed. Then, suddenly, she screamed. Damon surged forward, but Marcus caught his arm. You break the circle, you could kill her. The magic has to complete. It was agony to stand there and watch Aria writhe in pain, her body arching as the binding shattered. Light poured from her, not just silver moonlight, but colors Damon had never seen in wolf magic. Violet and blue and something that looked almost like starlight. And then, with a sound like thunder, her wolf emerged. She was magnificent. Larger than any female wolf Damon had ever seen, with fur that shifted between silver and white and pale blue, depending on how the moonlight hit it. Her eyes were that same extraordinary violet, glowing with intelligence and power. But it was more than her size or beauty. It was the aura of power that radiated from her, so intense that every wolf in the circle instinctively dropped to one knee. Even Damon felt the urge to submit, though his alpha nature fought against it. Aria's wolf stood in the center of the circle, breathing hard, looking around at the assembled wolves with those ancient eyes. Then her gaze found Damon, and she moved toward him with fluid grace. "Aria," he said softly, uncertain if she was still in control or if the wolf had taken over completely. The great wolf bumped her head against his chest, a gesture of affection and trust. Then, in a shimmer of magic that left everyone gasping, she shifted back to human form, a process that should have taken months to learn. Aria stood there, naked and glowing with residual magic, tears streaming down her face. "I can feel everything," she whispered in wonder. "The pack bonds, the moon, the earth beneath my feet. Damon, I can feel you. Our bond. It's like a golden thread connecting us." "Bond?" Damon's breath caught. "What bond?" "The mate bond," the high priestess said with awe. "Look at your wrist, your majesty." Damon looked down and saw what he'd thought impossible, the delicate mark of a mate bond, glowing faintly silver on his skin. The same mark appeared on Aria's wrist. "But that's impossible," Marcus breathed. "Your mate died. The bond was broken." "Elena was not his true mate," the high priestess said softly. "She was his chosen mate, bonded by will and love, but not fated by the moon. Lady Aria is his true mate. The bond was always there, waiting for her wolf to emerge so it could manifest." Damon stared at Aria, his mind reeling. All this time, while he'd been mourning Elena and thinking himself incapable of love, his true mate had been hidden away in a tower, bound and suppressed and waiting. "I felt it," Aria said, moving to him, unconcerned with her nakedness in that moment. "The moment my wolf emerged, I felt you. Like coming home. Like finding the other half of myself I didn't know was missing." Damon pulled off his cloak and wrapped it around her, then pulled her into his arms. "I felt it too," he admitted roughly. "The moment I lifted your veil, something in me recognized you. I just didn't understand what it was. And now I understand that the moon has a sense of humor. She gave me the one thing I thought I'd lost forever, but hid it in the last place I'd think to look." He tilted her chin up, his silver eyes intense. "You're mine, Aria. My true mate. My queen. And I swear on my life that I will never let anyone hurt you or use you." "And you're mine," she said fiercely. "Not because of politics or treaties, but because the moon herself bound us together." Their kiss was witnessed by the entire circle, wolves howling their approval at the sky. The prophecy had come true. The eclipsed child had emerged. But she hadn't come to destroy or conquer. She'd come to heal a broken king and unite a kingdom through the most powerful magic of all, true love. 6 months later, Aria stood on the tower platform that Damon had first shown her, watching the sun set over their kingdom. Below, she could see the orphan children playing in the courtyard. They'd tripled the orphanage since she'd become queen, and she visited them daily. Strong arms wrapped around her from behind, and she leaned back into Damon's embrace with a contented sigh. The council meeting ran long. He murmured against her hair. "What did I miss? Stella is pregnant. Clara is getting married. And your daughter has been kicking me all afternoon." Damon's hands moved to her swollen belly, his touch gentle despite his warrior's strength. They'd learned 2 months ago that Aria was carrying a girl, an eclipsed child, born of true mates, who would be the most powerful alpha female in generations. "She's strong like her mother," Damon said with pride. "Stubborn like her father," Aria countered with a laugh. Life had changed so much since that wedding night when Damon had lifted her veil. They'd faced challenges, rogue attacks aimed at the prophecy child, political machinations from packs who feared Aria's power, and the ongoing struggle with Alpha Roland, who'd tried to reclaim his daughter when he'd learned the truth. But through it all, their bond had only grown stronger. Damon had learned to laugh again, to feel joy again, to love without the shadow of grief hanging over him. Aria had found her strength, her voice, her place in the world. Together, they were rewriting what it meant to be Alpha King and Queen. "Do you ever regret it?" Damon asked softly. "Walking into that wedding, veiled and afraid, with no idea what you were walking into?" Aria turned in his arms, reaching up to touch his face. Never. You thought you were marrying an ugly wolfless, but what you got was something so much better. What's that? A swan who was just waiting for the right moment to spread her wings. She kissed him softly. And a love neither of us saw coming. The best kind of love, Damon agreed, pulling her closer as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Behind them, the moon began to rise full and bright and eternal, witnessing the love story she herself had written. A king who thought he was beyond saving. A girl who thought she was worthless. And the magic that bound them in ways neither had ever imagined. Chapter 8. The peace didn't last. 3 months after Aria's wolf emerged, whispers began spreading through the territories. Other alphas had heard about the prophecy child, about her unprecedented power, about the mate bond that had formed with the Alpha King. Some saw opportunity. Others saw threat. Alpha Roland saw revenge. Reports are coming in from the southern border, Marcus announced, bursting into the breakfast room where Damon and Aria were eating. The Silverpaw Pack is mobilizing. It looks like Roland is planning an attack. Aria's hand instinctively went to her belly, now 7 months swollen with their daughter. My father wouldn't be that foolish. He can't possibly think he can defeat Damon's forces. He's not alone, Marcus said grimly. We have intelligence that 3 other packs have joined him, the Shadow Fong, the Ironwood, and the Crimson Moon. They're calling themselves the Old Guard. They claim the prophecy child threatens the traditional pack structure, that your power is unnatural. They're afraid, Damon said quietly, his silver eyes hard. Afraid that Aria represents change they can't control. Marcus, mobilize our forces. We'll meet them at the Singing River border. It's defensible terrain. No, Aria said firmly. We can't just meet violence with more violence. These packs are responding to fear. Let me talk to them. Absolutely not, Damon said, his alpha authority making the words a command. You're pregnant. I won't risk you. Aria stood, and despite her swollen belly, there was nothing soft about her presence. Her wolf rose close to the surface, making her eyes glow that distinctive violet. I am not some helpless female to be protected, Damon. I am your mate, your equal, and I am the reason they're coming. This is my fight too. For a long moment, they stared at each other, 2 alphas, 2 equals, testing the boundaries of their bond. Finally, Damon's expression softened slightly. Together, he said. We face them together. But if things go wrong, you run. You protect our daughter. Promise me. I promise, Aria said, though they both knew she was lying. Chapter 9. The Singing River marked the boundary between Blackthorn territory and the disputed lands. Damon's forces arrived first, taking defensive positions along the ridge. Aria stood beside him in her ceremonial armor, specially made to accommodate her pregnancy, her silver-white wolf present just beneath her skin. When the Old Guard forces appeared on the opposite ridge, their numbers were staggering. Roland had gathered more allies than Marcus's intelligence had suggested. It's a trap, Marcus breathed. They wanted us here. Look at the western flank. He was cut off by the sound of howls erupting from behind them. A 5th pack, the Blood Moon Rogues, had somehow gotten past their scouts and were now attacking from the rear. We're surrounded, Damon said, his tactical mind already working through scenarios. None of them were good. Alpha Roland's voice boomed across the valley, amplified by alpha magic. Surrender the prophecy child, Blackthorn. Give her to us and we'll let your pack live. Keep her and everyone dies, including that abomination she's carrying. Aria felt Damon's fury through their bond, a white-hot rage that made his wolf rise to the surface. But before he could respond, she stepped forward, her own voice carrying with unexpected power. You want me, father? Then face me yourself. Or are you too much of a coward to fight your own daughter? The assembled wolves fell silent. Challenging an alpha to single combat was an old tradition, one that hadn't been invoked in decades. But once issued, it couldn't be refused without dishonor. Aria, no, Damon started, but she cut him off with a look. Trust me, she said softly, just for him. Trust our bond. Trust what the moon made me. Reluctantly, because his mate had commanded it, Damon stepped back. But his entire body was coiled, ready to intervene at the first sign of danger. Alpha Roland descended from the ridge, shifting into his wolf form, a massive gray beast with cold yellow eyes. He was larger than most alphas, scarred from 100 battles, and completely ruthless. Aria met him halfway between the two forces, shifting into her own wolf form in a cascade of silver light. She was beautiful and terrible, her violet eyes blazing with power. But she was also 7 months pregnant, which made her vulnerable in ways her father clearly intended to exploit. Roland attacked without warning, going straight for her throat. But Aria was faster than he expected, dodging aside and using his momentum against him. Her mother's bloodline sang in her veins. Luna Celestia had been one of the greatest warriors of her generation, and Aria had inherited more than just her power. They fought in a blur of fur and fangs, silver and gray wolves locked in combat. Roland had experience and size, but Aria had something he didn't: the mate bond with Damon, feeding her strength and healing, and the fierce determination of a mother protecting her unborn child. But Roland had come prepared. As they fought, Aria felt something sting her flank. Silver, she realized with horror. He'd coated his claws in silver poison, the one thing that could incapacitate even a powerful alpha wolf. She stumbled, her legs beginning to weaken. Roland circled her, victorious, preparing for the killing blow. That's when Damon's anguished roar split the air. He shifted mid-leap, his massive black wolf colliding with Roland before the older alpha could deliver the death strike. The impact sent both wolves tumbling, and suddenly the battlefield erupted into chaos as both forces surged forward. But something else was happening. As Aria lay there, fighting the silver poison with everything she had, she felt her daughter move within her. Not just move, pulse with power. The child was trying to heal her mother, pushing her own nascent magic through their connection. And it was working. Aria felt the silver poison burning away, consumed by a power unlike anything she'd encountered. Her daughter wasn't just an eclipse child, she was the child of true mates, conceived with love and bound by prophecy. She was something entirely new. Aria rose to her feet, her wolf form blazing with light that made every wolf on the battlefield shield their eyes. When she spoke, her voice carried with the weight of prophecy itself. Enough. The single word, backed by her power, brought the fighting to a halt. Wolves from both sides stood frozen, unable to resist the command in her voice. You came here because you fear change, Aria said, shifting back to human form and uncaring of her nakedness or vulnerability. You fear what you don't understand. But the prophecy was never about destruction. It was about evolution. About becoming better than we were. She walked toward Roland, who was pinned beneath Damon's massive wolf. You hid me because you were ashamed. You tried to kill me because you were afraid. But I am your daughter, and I am the future you cannot stop. She placed her hand on Roland's head, and something passed between them: memories, understanding, a glimpse of the pain that had made him what he was. Roland's mate, Aria's mother, had loved him desperately. When she died performing the binding ritual, it had broken something in him. He'd blamed the child who'd lived when his mate had died. I forgive you, Aria said softly. Not because you deserve it, but because I choose not to carry your hate anymore. The silver light pulsing from her hands flowed into Roland, and something in him, something that had been twisted and dark for 22 years, began to heal. When she stepped back, Roland shifted to human form, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, he choked out. Moon above, I'm so sorry. Celestia, forgive me. What have I done? The battlefield remained silent as father and daughter faced each other for the first time with honest hearts. Then Roland did something no one expected. He dropped to his knees, baring his throat in submission. I, Alpha Roland of the Silverpaw Pack, recognize Aria Blackthorn as my superior and my queen. I pledge my pack to her service and beg forgiveness for my crimes against her. One by one, the other alphas who'd joined the old guard followed suit. They'd come to fight a monster, but what they'd found instead was mercy, power tempered with compassion, strength wrapped in love. Damon shifted back to human form, moving immediately to Aria's side to wrap her in his cloak. Through their bond, She felt his pride, his love, his awe at what she'd become. "You didn't run," he murmured against her hair. "Neither did you," she replied with a tired smile. "We're both terrible at following orders. Then it's a good thing we're in charge." Epilogue. The birth of Princess Luna Celestia Blackthorn was attended by representatives from every major pack in the territory. The alphas who'd once tried to kill Aria now stood guard outside the royal chambers, protecting the child they'd come to recognize as their future. The labor was long and difficult, but when Aria finally held her daughter in her arms, every moment of pain was forgotten. Luna had her father's silver eyes and her mother's silver-white hair, and even at just moments old, her presence radiated power and peace in equal measure. "She's perfect," Damon whispered, one finger gently stroking his daughter's tiny hand. "Just like her mother." "She's going to change everything," Aria said with certainty. "Not through force or fear, but through love." That's what the prophecy really meant. Over the following months, the kingdom transformed. Alpha Roland, seeking redemption, became one of Aria's most loyal advisors, sharing stories of Luna Celestia that helped Aria understand her mother's sacrifice. The orphanage expanded into a school, teaching not just combat but diplomacy, healing, and pack magic. The rigid hierarchies that had defined wolf society for centuries began to soften, replaced by a system that valued contribution over bloodline. And at the center of it all was Aria, no longer the veiled, hidden daughter of shame, but a queen who ruled with her mate by her side, proving every day that true strength came not from dominance, but from the courage to be vulnerable, to love fiercely, and to forgive even when forgiveness seemed impossible. 5 years later, Princess Luna sat in the palace library, surrounded by a mix of alpha children, omega children, and even a few young rogues who'd been welcomed into the pack. At 5 years old, she already showed signs of extraordinary power, but more importantly, she showed her mother's compassion and her father's strategic mind. "Tell us the story again, Mama," Luna demanded as Aria entered the library, now visibly pregnant with her second child, a boy this time. "Which story, Little Moon?" "The one about the ugly duckling who became a swan," Luna said, her silver eyes sparkling. Aria smiled, settling carefully into the chair they'd made especially for the pregnant queen. "That's not quite how the story goes, sweetheart." "Yes, it is," Luna insisted. "Papa told me. He said you were a beautiful swan all along, but everyone thought you were an ugly duckling until he lifted your veil and saw the truth." "Did he now?" Aria glanced at Damon, who'd appeared in the doorway wearing a sheepish expression. "I may have taken some poetic license with the story," he admitted. "The real lesson," Aria said, gathering Luna onto her lap carefully, "is that sometimes the most powerful magic is hidden in the most unexpected places. Your papa thought he was getting one thing, but the moon had other plans. Because you were mates," Luna said excitedly. "The moon knew even when you didn't." "Exactly. And that's the most important thing to remember. Trust the moon, trust your heart, and never let anyone make you believe you're less than you are. Even if they hide you in a tower? Especially then. Because towers can't hold moonlight, and you, my darling girl, are made of moonlight and starfire and love." Damon crossed the room to join his family, wrapping his arms around both his mate and his daughter. Through the windows, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. In the valley below, the kingdom they'd built together thrived, not perfect, but better. "Always reaching for better. Do you ever think about that night?" Aria asked softly, just for Damon. "The wedding night, when you had no idea what you were getting into?" "Every day," Damon said, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I think about how I believed I was making a sacrifice for my kingdom. How I thought I was marrying a stranger who meant nothing to me. How wrong I was about everything. Any regrets?" "Only one, that I didn't find you sooner. That you suffered alone for so long before I could protect you." "You found me exactly when the moon intended," Aria said, tilting her head back for a proper kiss. "Not a moment too soon, not a moment too late. Just perfectly in time to save each other." As the moon began to rise over Blackthorn Palace, the royal family remained in the library, surrounded by children and books and the peaceful quiet of a kingdom at peace. The alpha king who'd thought himself beyond redemption. The hidden princess who'd believed herself worthless. And the daughter born of their love, who would one day lead their people into an even brighter future. The prophecy had come true after all. Not through destruction, but through transformation. Not through force, but through love. And every wolf in the kingdom knew the story of how their ice-cold king had lifted a veil expecting nothing and found everything he'd ever needed. The end. I want to say thank you for listening to this beautiful story. I'm Grace Mira, and every story you hear here is written by me, with the voices and images brought to life using AI. If you enjoyed this one, please subscribe, like, and share. Your support helps me create more lovely stories for you.